What's up, guys? Welcome back to another video. Numero trace. At some point, we're gonna start losing count here, but today we're gonna talk about fear or the emotion of fear. I've kind of deemed this the four horsemen of fear, and I've singled out four versions of this emotion that I think come up pretty commonly amongst just people in general. And I've definitely experienced in one way or another each of these fears at one point in my life. So these are the four fears I think that are stopping people from being average to becoming great just in their own regard and how they view their own lives, right? So first off, I want to start with kind of what I feel about fear and what fear actually is, right? And I think fear is often viewed as something that's concrete, right? It's almost treated as something tangible or super logical, as if it's a part of reality. And a lot of that is because it triggers a lot of these survival instincts that obviously our ancestors had when they were fighting animals in the wild and living in tribes and right the days of old, if you will. In the grand scheme of things, humans are pretty new to the whole life thing. So, don't know why I use quotes around life, but that is something to envision here because that those years and years and millions of years of programming, this fear triggers these instincts and essentially makes us believe that this thing is real when in reality, the two things that are real when it comes to this emotion of fear coming up inside of us is that that emotion will pass and times have changed. Speaking to the first point, that emotion that you have is just sort of an instantaneous reaction, right? It's an instinct, quite literally. And you can't be so reactive to really any emotions that come up, but especially fear. And I'll get into the why on that as we break down sort of the four horsemen. But it's going to be temporary, right? This is not an everlasting thing. It's not permanent. And yeah, that needs to be understood by you. And that takes a lot of the power away from fear, is just allowing you to sit in it for that moment, witness it. And just by doing those two things of not reacting and then realizing and becoming aware of the fear, you will be able to act more accordingly, right? With more intent in terms of what you actually had set out to do, right? And instead of diverting your course in the moment that fear arises, you're almost expecting it and then you just kind of relish in it a little bit, let it become familiarized, and at some point it's going to kind of dissipate from you, right? And it might spike back up again, but again, it's fleeting. It's going to come, it's going to go. And the moment that times have changed, a lot of these fear factors, just logically speaking, aren't relevant anymore, right? And I'll kind of break down how that is in these upcoming slides. But essentially, what I want you to understand going into this is that living in fear is to not live in reality. Fear is not reality in many of the cases, right? And living a life of fear leads to a very unfulfilled life for that reason, right? Because fear was holding you back from X, Y, and Z, but in reality, it was just a fear, it was just an emotion. You let your emotions dictate essentially what your life was and could have been, right? So, knowing that, let's talk about the first fear, fear of loss, fear of failure. Um, I've kind of combined these two because they're largely the same in terms of the origins of them and how to get over them in a sense. So, human beings are, we're some ancient practitioners of loss aversion, right? And it's this concept that we view losing something as far more devastating and impactful than actually obtaining something or the joy around a reward, right? Or climbing to a different echelon, an upper echelon. the reward is not seen as worth it, right? The cons constantly outweigh the pros, really, no matter what we're thinking of. Our brain is instantly going to first pick out the negative things because it's a survival mechanic. Problem is that this fear develops a scarcity mindset because the fear's logic is, well, we should be afraid of loss and failure and the humiliation that might come with it or whatever it may be. So you stop doing that thing, right? Or you play not to lose, but you don't ever play to win. And in doing that, you're never actually going to be able to grow or gain these new experiences because if you're not actually putting one foot in front of the other, trying to win the game, just telling yourself, okay, I just need to not lose, you're going to end up losing anyway in the long run, right? Playing not to lose is just delaying that inevitability. Or you could take a risk and try to play to win and come out on the other side of that, right? Develop an abundance mindset. Things are here for you, and there's plenty of it. You just got to go get it. That's the mindset. But this fear, if you let it shackle you, it will quite literally make you think that things are too limited. You only get one chance. XYZ, if that doesn't work out, then you'll be put in a certain box. I'm not going to go start doing this thing because it's much more comfortable doing what I'm doing right now, right? The fear of loss and the fear of failure stops you from chasing the exact opposite of those things. That's what fear does in general. Is the thing that you're afraid of prevents you from the thing that you want. It's the complete irony. So facing them and understanding how to navigate them is essential. So for loss and failure, you have to take the risks. You got to gain the experience and you have to endure the consequences because there will be times that you fail, but getting back up and trying again is beating that fear. And every time you do that, you're going to diminish it little by little, little by little. Because if you're getting up and you're trying again, you're putting yourself out there, trying again, failing, whatever, and you're in this cycle until you build up and up and up and eventually hit success. Every step that you take there, though, is just building the evidence. It's just building the log. And while you're doing that, you're diminishing the fear. Kind of goes back to my first video about rewiring your brain. And this is very much a subsection of that, where by going against the fear, right, actually dabbling in the reality that your fear is creating. Okay, I have this fear of loss. Well, who's to say you'll lose that thing, right? You don't actually know until you take the action and then gain a little bit of experience. And as you do that, that fear gets diminished more and more and more and more. Fear of judgment and fear of rejection, another big one. Because human beings were tribal in nature and we're very social creatures as well, right? So on the tribal stance, back in the olden days, getting cast out of your tribe quite literally would mean death, essentially, right? Getting cast out of your tribe, strength in numbers, that sort of thing. To be cast down on your own would essentially mean the end of your life. Going against lions, tigers, and bears. Oh my. Obviously, being in the modern world, it's not that extreme. And in fact, connectivity between humans is at an all-time peak, right? So understand this acceptance that you're craving internally from whoever it may be. It could be people you look up to, it could be people you don't even like, funny enough. Understand that you are once again acting sort of in a scarcity mindset as well. And your fear of rejection is leading you to act in a way where, yes, maybe you're not getting rejected by the tribe, but you are rejecting yourself. And that does its own sort of damage in terms of your self esteem, your self confidence, self worth, right? How you view yourself. That's going to tear you apart because you're day in, day out doing the things because this group of people over here saying things. And yes, while you're salvaging, you know, that connectivity and your attachment to that tribal group, you're sacrificing the individual you, who you are, what you want, your dreams, aspirations, and things like that. So the solution here is to realize the modern world, yes, is not that extreme, and there's such a big connectivity. If you don't like your tribe, go find a new one. Don't be afraid to be different, and also don't be afraid to do things by yourself. It might be like that for a while. It's how it is when you're breaking out of a bubble that this whole time you've been incubating in these thoughts and ideas, and then at some point you break away from that. You might have to go on a little bit of a journey until you find some other people, right? And you'll find you kind of end up building your own tribe, right? It becomes a very proactive journey of finding one person here, a couple people there, right? They might not be copy and paste like you. That's not really the point of a tribe, but the fundamentals, the principles, things that you were initially judged for and rejected, and that were eating you alive inside by not doing whatever the things are, or not exhibiting the characteristics that you wanted, or the initial, or the traits that you wanted. As long as those are aligned, you can start building your new tribe, one that's in alignment with who you are and who you always wanted to be. Fear of commitment. Another big one. Wouldn't be here if it wasn't, right? So, human beings, we naturally want to avoid pain or any potential for the pain, for that matter, right? That this fear will convince you, the old adage of, hey, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Hey, diversify or multitask or have a backup plan for this. All of these are just different ways of saying don't go all in. Don't fully get in because you might get disappointed. You might let yourself down. You might fall short of your expectations. You might not succeed. You're going to fail, right? So going into these ventures with one foot in, one foot out is like a safeguard. Well, I didn't commit to that thing all the way anyway. So when you do inevitably fail because you're not committing, you have an excuse. You have a cushion to land on of, well, if I really put 110% into that, I would get it. But because I was, I'm doing a lot of things right now, or I don't really need this thing. I actually have plan B over here waiting for me. And I can do that pretty easy. But that's exactly what the fear does. That's exactly what it wants. It wants you to feel confident and not almost boost your ego in the sense of, oh, you're doing all these different things, right? Your lack of commitment will get turned into some sort of jack of all trades thing, which, and I'll make a video about that some other time, I think is a good way to live life in terms of being good in a multitude of aspects of life, but not actually focusing and building on that thing will contaminate your effort, and it tarnishes any of the results that you end up getting in the long run. You're essentially planning to fail if you don't commit to whatever the thing is, whether it's the gym, whether it's learning a new language, whether it's a new hobby you're taking up, whether it's your career or a relationship. It's going to fail because you're not all in. You're not allowing yourself to unapologetically give all your effort to actually care about something. Care that it fails. Care so much that if it fails, you'll get up and try it again. Not run home to plan X, Y, and Z. My three favorite letters of the alphabet, apparently. Essentially, to get over this, you have to commit, right? And that's sort of the theme with all fear is you kind of have to do it anyway, right? Stop leaving ways back. Stop leaving these excuses on the table, these fallback plans. You got to go all in, burn the bridge. burn the bridge. And like I said, society and everybody else will tell you, well, no, the smart thing to do, the intelligent thing to do, the right thing to do would be to have multiple paths you can sort of jump around on, multiple things that you can kind of fall back on just in case things don't work out. Let me tell you something right now before I move on. The only reason it won't work out is because you didn't actually fully commit. So go all in. And numero cuatro, fear the unknown. Human beings believe that the unknown is danger and danger is death. So by the transitive property, the unknown is death. And obviously, we will then subsequently avoid the unknown at all costs, wherever it comes up in life. Like I said, a lot of it comes from learning something new, trying to grow and trying to evolve, right? All of these fears thematically repress curiosity and prevent you from learning and growing and exploration. But this fear is really the poster child for repressing you and trying to grow as a person. I think the one thing that you should have in terms of shifting your mentality, really just having the understanding that no one knows everything and no one ever will know everything. Not you, not your mom, not dad, nobody. There will always be something that you don't know. There will always be an unknown for your entire life and the next life after that and the life after that. There will always be something you don't know. So accept that and then just feed your curiosity because why not? Why not? Why not learn something new? Why not grow? Why not evolve? Why not try this thing? Why not try it again after you fail? Why not? Right? And that brings me to the last point about this and kind of to my first video about hypotheticals, right? I talk pretty down on hypotheticals for good reason, right? Because they are infamously negative. But if you can recognize them and flip them on their head, hypotheticals can actually become pretty powerful, right? Very motivating and inspiring, especially when you're trying to face these fears initially. Hypotheticals thrive in this fear, but really in the emotion in general. But again, flipping it on its head. Well, what if that doesn't work out? What if I fail? What if it does work out? What if you don't fail? Right? Those questions don't ever come up because ties back into a lot of these other fears I'm talking about, right? Loss aversion and things like that, right? The negative is always going to be presented first because the negative is associated with danger, right? Your brain is wired to evaluate threats first. But if you can take a deep breath, realize it's an emotion and that it comes and it goes, and really it's happened so many times you're expecting it at this point, then you can actually take the time, process it, and flip it on its head. Yeah, okay. It's risky. I could fail. I could not. Then it just comes down to the other emotion, the ambition, the why do you want to do that thing? That will be the driving force as well. But I'm saying all these things of facing your fear and basically all these tools to navigate these very common fears in life to really just give you a boost, right? This is the launch pad, as it were. But in order to fly up into space, you can't just face the fear. You have to literally not believe in it at all. You have to believe fear is not a part of life. It's all like how we started this video, a figment. It's not real. Now, saying that and you hearing that, you're probably like, that's crazy. What do you mean there's not? There's plenty of things to be fearful of, right? Fearful of death, fearful of injury, fearful of losing people, fearful of any of these things I've just said, fearful of, like, you're scared. I'm scared. We're scared of things. But hopefully this video and obviously some of the tactics I've shared here will start that journey for you, as it did for me, to get rid of the fear, to deal with it, do things in spite of it, right? Build up your bravery, your courage. But the thing is that bravery is backed by pure will, right? Courage is finite. There will be something that it comes up in life, catches you on the wrong day, and you're out of courage. You can't put on the brave face anymore. You break. And if you break once, it's a slippery slope. I'll be honest with you, because these fears are crippling. That's why they have a hold on so many people in life. That's why so many people actually live their whole life in fear and don't even know it until it's about to end. The ultimate goal is to be fearless. And being fearless is different than being brave, because being brave means you're doing things in spite of the fear. Being fearless means you don't even believe in it. The idea and the concept of it just don't resonate with you. Even if they used to, it doesn't anymore. It almost doesn't make sense when somebody says that to you now. Scared of what? Fearful of what? Exactly. You start pinning it down, well, maybe there's nothing to be fearful of, really. Even death itself, but that's a whole other video. Being fearless is living life without believing in fear's existence. And I have a quote here by the now pretty crazy Kanye West of what's a god to a non-believer. This is not for me to start probing at, your religious aspects and views on life in that sense, but it's a powerful quote, right? This concept of God, right? This thing that seems so concrete, so true, so present, means absolutely nothing to somebody who doesn't believe in that. And obviously people who do believe in that thing, and again, trying to take God out of it for a second, but who people who believe in fear, they at best learn how to combat it, become brave, and at worst they succumb to it. They live in it as if there's nothing or no other way to live. But once you don't believe in it, then you're truly free of fear. That's where I'm trying to be. And I hope this video helped you guys on your path to ultimately becoming fearless. If you like this content, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you're new. Hope to see you guys in the next video. Deuces.